Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. Today is June the 12th, 2026. Today is Nigeria's Democracy Day. And rather than my typical discussions, which can be deep and heavy, I decided I want to keep it light and discuss something that's, might be beneficial to many Nigerians hoping to come to America to study one day. And there are many here as well who are students and um, they they're here temporarily as guests. They have the privilege, right, of studying in America, and they're hoping that they can become permanent residents, green card holders, and then one day become American citizens, right? So uh, Now, what I'm going to discuss, since it deals with immigration, there's something called immigration law. I want to put a disclaimer. I am not licensed to practice as an attorney. I'm not an immigration attorney, and I'm not your lawyer. However, I do hold a Juris Doctor degree. That's called a Doctor of Law degree from George Washington University in DC. And this is just for information uh, purposes, right? I've once been an F1 student, so I guess I know what it feels like. Um, the F1 students can be something that's fantastic. Everybody has the privilege of becoming an F1 student in America. America has well, for me, from my experience, it was the best immigration system uh, in the world. And look, America has a history with immigration, right? It's a mixed bag. It goes back and forth. There was a time, 1882, uh, a president, 21st President Chester A. Arthur passed was it the Chinese Exclusion Act, actually banning Chinese people of Chinese descent from immigrating and becoming American citizens. They couldn't become American citizens. There was a time Calvin Coolidge, and starting from Woodrow Wilson, then Calvin Coolidge, they excluded Asians, right, from immigrating to America and becoming citizens. They were banned. They couldn't be citizens. America's immigration policies became more liberal and more reflective of what we know today as very friendly, uh, with the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 under President Lyndon B. Johnson, who, of course, introduced so many reforms as well, and many laws, including the Civil Rights Acts and laws that were against discrimination in the federal government and public places. So America goes back and forth. Now we're in those times again with ICE, ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, I believe, uh, picking up a lot of illegals, deporting them, raiding them, violating due process. Well, that's because, well, America has what many people have called a broken immigration system because, of course, um, people who break the immigration rules have exploited the system, right? So, of course, we have about 20 million um, undocumented people in America, living in America. And of course, the border is, as they say, porous as people walk through. America is the most powerful nation in the world, and once you're here, it's liberal, it's open. There are people who have abused the system, like there was the superintendent of Iowa Public Schools in Des Moines, Iowa, by the name of he calls himself doctor. We found out later on that his educational credentials were fabricated. He doesn't have a doctorate, but he does call himself doctor. That's Ian Roberts, right? From Guyana, originally from Guyana. He had been passing off himself as being an American citizen on his employment records. He'd been misrepresenting, and that's actually a crime. To claim that you're an American citizen on employment documents anywhere is a crime when you're not. So, and apparently he was actually in removal process, but He was working and misrepresenting himself as being a citizen. He had false credentials. He had actually, you know, been, and of course he'd provided false information on his immigration documents as well. But here he was, not being a citizen, and working in the public sector, right, in Iowa's public schools as superintendent, making $286,000 a year. So of course that makes American citizens angry, right? So he's in prison now. After prison, he will be in deportation proceedings. You don't want to be in that situation if you're an F1 student. Uh, you want to be in a good situation. Elon Musk, who's richest man in the world today, it's he's estimated, it's projected that he might be the world's first trillionaire. He was once an F1 student, right? The black-white disparity, I'm not going to get into that. But Elon Musk, uh, he couldn't have come to America and thought, well, his plan is to be the richest man in the world. No, you can't do that as an F1. You can't even plan to be an American citizen as an F1, right? Because it's a privilege, and it's up to one. There's a requirement that you have to go through the process, right, seamlessly, and don't be out of status. Once you're out of status, then you're toast, right? You can't do anything being out of status. Even if you marry somebody, you're going to have to go back, especially with the way they've changed the rules. So being in status, if you're F1, that's very significant. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm just going to get into the process of going from F1 to being a green card holder, then to being a citizen. So first of all, F1, that means you have been invited as a non-immigrant visa holder, right? As a student, to be a student at an accredited school, a school recognized by the U.S. Department of State, by the Department of Education and whatnot, right? So it's you have a temporary visa status, but as a student, right? So typically, and you can get that F1 visa status, through different means. There are people who have the money, who can pay the school, pay the tuition. And there are people who are fortunate, they have organizations sponsor them, pay for their education. There are people, the school likes them and pays for their education. So you see, America is a generous nation, regardless of how it's perceived when it's going through its pendulum, its swings, right? It goes back and forth. Immigration has its ebbs and flows, just as race has its the race relations in America has its ebbs and flows as well. So F1, you're here. Importantly, while you're F1, the school is the one that regulates you. The school that your school is on your visa, right? It's going to be stamped on your visa. So that school regulates your status. So long as you're attending classes, you're doing well in school, you're making progress towards graduating, your school's happy, and also you're paying your school, your tuition, your school fees. Some people get lucky, they might get a scholarship, they might get some kind of work study program, an graduate assistantship if they're graduate students. So it's hard to get a loan because most people who are F1 students haven't established credits, right? So the bank's not going to extend them a loan, right? They don't have a credit back profile. So, and some people get the opportunity to work, right? You can have financial hardship if you're going through extreme hardship. Typically on F1, you are allowed to work 20 hours, 20 hours a week, right? If you're an F1 student, so you can get work more with extreme financial hardship, right? So many people who are resourceful find a way to pay their, once they're here, they're having troubles, because sometimes your family might have financial trouble being able to pay your school fees. The rate conversion can be very steep, especially for Nigerians. Now it's about what, it's hovered between 1,300 to 1,500 naira to $1. When I came to America in the late 90s, it was it was I think it was just about $100 naira to one, 99 to 100 naira to $1. And even then, I felt really sorry for my parents. Wow, that they were paying so much. So that's one. So importantly, you don't want to be out of status with school. If you pull out of school, what your the international officer, there's an international officer in your school. What they do is they just send your name to immigration and they start looking for you to deport you, right? Because you're out of status. So your F1 status, your business is to be in school, taking courses, taking classes, working towards graduation, right? Working towards graduation. So you graduate from school with a bachelor's, you might want to do a master's. That's no problem. Back then, you could change, apply and get a new program without having to go home. Some people have the money, right, and they can go back and forth. It costs a lot of money: $2,000 return ticket, $1,000 to $2,000 return ticket. Some people might see it that that's just money towards their tuition, and they might as well stay here. It makes sense. So and then so you can go and get masters, you can go and do a PhD. But the thing is, after you graduate, or once you graduate with your first degree, you're entitled to what's called, not entitled, right? It's still a privilege, optional practical training. So America wants to have students come here and to naturalize. Let me give you the secret. America is an immigrant nation. From the beginning, immigration was important. In our Declaration of Independence, one of the grievances that the founding fathers had, that Thomas Jefferson wrote in, was that the king made it hard for people to immigrate and naturalize, right? Because they needed people. It was rich and fertile land. It was new, and they needed people to come and work the land, right? So that was always important. That was part of, uh, you know, being an American, right? The beginning, from the founding of the nation. Of course, we know that even in our first cabinet, an immigrant, right, was the most important, was the most powerful man in our first cabinet, Alexander Hamilton, right? He wasn't born in America. He was an immigrant, came around the age of 15 to attend Columbia University, right? So you can imagine he came as a student. He didn't dream of staying here in America. He was from the island of Nevis, right? And he was poor. So you can have that dream. There are other people. I used to love reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's Bodybuilding for Men. I owned that book when I was a kid. Arnold Schwarzenegger came as a champion bodybuilder. He went to school. He came in his 20s and eventually became a two-time governor of California. He became the highest paid movie star. He's done so much. We all know Arnold Schwarzenegger. So America welcomes immigrants, right? It welcomes immigrants. There's this, oh yes, there's again, it's a mixed bag because there are many people, a bunch of them who abuse the immigration process. That can make Americans happy, right? So it's understandable. America has a wonderful immigration process. I saw something on immigration this morning in the news. I didn't read it, but it was saying that America probably should change and have a merit-based immigration system because they know they need talent. It's always been the case, like I said. After the Second World War, it removed those hostile measures in its immigration policies, right? Because it was the Cold War and it was trying to attract scientists, brilliant scientists. So even Nazis, that's not a good aspect of American immigration, right? Operation Paperclip, America naturalized Nazi scientists because America wanted to have those scientists to build its space program, its ballistic program, rather than have its rival Russia have them, because Russia was trying to get them as well, the German scientists, right, former Nazis. And apart from that, you see many people who even come and study here. America realizes if they go back, they've become excellent students and all that. If they leave, then they add to the education capital of their rival, right? Rival nations, right? So America wouldn't do that. America would rather have people it trains, brilliant people who can develop the nation stay here. That's the truth. That's the reality. So if you're in the, if you're in, if you have that F1 status, you don't want to be out of status. If you ever fall out of status, you're toast. You have to go back, right, to Nigeria, right, where you've come from. And once you've fallen out of status, the next time you go before an immigration officer, they're probably not going to be happy with you because they'll be able to see your background, your history, your immigration history. They'll see that, okay, you violated, you've been out of status before, you're going to be out of status again. So they're not going to be look on you favorably. So you want to always be in status. Some people immediately, so that you can understand the process. Normally, when you're an F1, the school helps you, right? Because they have somebody who's a counselor. They help you so long as you're paying your school fees. You're nice. You're good. They so long as they like you. They're not ogres. That was my experience, right? They're not monsters. They like you so long as you're a good person. They liked you before they gave you that F1. There was something they liked about you on paper, right? And I remember my school that I went to. I didn't know when I got here, and they had me change my program, right? And I was stunned. And they told me something. They said, we liked you. We wanted to have you here. So your essay is very important. Since that school that I went to, Troy University, where I did an undergraduate in accounting, and then I did an MBA, master's. Since then, I've gone to different schools. I've gone to schools in Europe. I've gone to school at Oxford. I've gone to school in Bocconi University in Italy. I've gotten a law degree from George Washington University. I've gotten another degree from Columbia University. Now, I've needed letters of recommendation all the time. No school's going to take you without a letter of recommendation, right? So people I met wrote me letters of recommendation. So you always need people in your corner, right? I'm an American citizen now, so things are different, right? The way I see things are very, very different, right? So So Americans, when you're a citizen, again, it's your right, and we stand on our rights. And if you notice, Americans can be a little bit irreverent. They don't want to kowtow, So I've become Americanized. But that aside, I'm talking about how you can have an F1, and and you should be in status all the time. So things are a lot challenging now. So but again, the pendulum swings, and it depends on the administration, right? So in another administration, I take a different attitude with respect to immigration and F1 students. So after your F1, once you graduate, your school helps you file for your optional practical training. It depends. It can take 2 years, depending on your major. For STEM, I think it's 2 to 3 years or whatever. I'm not up to date with the current years, the breakdown, but so you get your optional practical training, right? Your employer doesn't sponsor you for optional practical training. Now I see the new employment files. Back then, America was so immigration friendly. Back then, employers were not allowed to ask you if you're a citizen. They just asked, are you legally authorized to work in the United States? That's it. So now they're changing it. There's some employers that are, it's against the law, right? It's against the law, but they're doing it anyway, right? Because so I don't know, but and in America, to resolve a matter, if somebody's breaking the law, you have to take them to court. And guess what? You need a lawyer who is an expert in the law, knows the nuances, the ins and outs, and they cost money, right? They cost money. Well, something that might also help is you getting an immigration lawyer, right, who will always keep you in status, right, to make sure that you don't violate anything. So again, once you're at F1, right, you're in a very, very good status, right? America did a great thing once if they gave you an F1 from Nigeria to come here, but you must never be out of status. And so you have your optional practical training. You have some years to work, right? You don't have to be in school. You have some years to work and earn money and to plan to go to grad school or whatever, right? And so from that, your employer might now start to help you. Many employers sponsor for H1B if they like you. H1B back then, so they're looking for talent, but the H1B was because many people want to work for the big and prestigious companies. So the H1B was for smaller businesses that couldn't compete with big businesses, right? So they were more willing to sponsor people, right, to get talent that they can't compete with the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, or whatever the bigger firms with, because those bigger firms have the money. Everybody wants to work with the bigger firms. They pay more money. So the other thing is for H1B, if you're on H1B, back then the federal government, I think it'll still be the case. The federal government allows the employer to pay you 10% less than it would pay an American citizen with the same set of skills. So that's that was another incentive for the H1B, right? So the H1B, you can have it for a maximum of 6 years. During that process, you can start filing a change of status for a green card. How do you get to the green card? If you have a terminal degree, you can file for a green card on your own, right? There are different things, national interest waiver, whatever. You can file for a merit-based green card on your own. You don't need an employer to sponsor you. An example, an MBA is a terminal degree, but most masters are not terminal degrees. So a PhD is a terminal degree. So if you have a doctorate, some kind of doctorate, America wants to keep people who have a doctor in their name here in America. America wants to keep them. The more some economists measure wealth, right? Progress, the well-being index of a nation by how many doctors they have. I don't mean just medical doctors. I mean anybody who has a doctor in their name, because a doctor indicates a highly skilled person and class, a highly skilled society. Obviously, an advanced capitalist nation needs highly skilled people, whether it's in sciences or it's in the arts. So there are all these professions, numerous professions. If you show excellence in something, you're excellent in something. Then you have a good chance that you can petition for a green card on your own. But it's extremely difficult, right? It's extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult because it's very competitive. But the main thing is that you are in status, right? You're in status. And once you get a green card, of course, you just have to be a law-abiding person, pay your taxes, law-abiding person, stay out of trouble, and you become eligible after 5 years to naturalize as an American citizen, to take the citizenship test and become an American citizen. And once you're an American citizen, you have equal status with those born here, right? So that's the process from F1 to citizenship. There are many other ways, there are many other paths as well, but the most important thing is to never be out of status, and also importantly when you're filing your documents, to be honest in your documents, right? If you're there's been talk of revocation of citizenship, right? When you take the citizenship, it's nothing new, right? When you take the citizenship test, or you're going through that path, right? You are taking them under oath that you're telling the truth, and that you're not misrepresenting your identity, and that you're not a criminal, right? So criminals can't go through the process, right? So you want to know, they exclude criminals. In fact, people who have a mental illness, right, a severe mental illness, are excluded, unfortunately, from obtaining green card, because they don't want people who will be a burden on the society, right? They don't want people who will be, it's sad to say, well, people who have a mental illness are a burden on society, but that other taxpayers, because American taxpayers don't want to have to pay for them. American taxpayers are looking for people who will be enterprising, might create businesses like Elon Musk, or might be medical doctors, or might be, a rocket scientist, do things that will make America better, right? America likes being number one. You see, that's our favorite mantra, USA number one. America likes that. So America, America keeps people. Americans like to do that wherever it is, right? That okay, hey, that people who can help them be stay on top. I remember there was a course I took, courses I took when I was in Troy, Alabama, and the professor announced that I made the perfect score. I was a top scoring student. And I remember a white girl just came to me and was like, hey, you're not going anywhere. You're staying here in America, And I, again, to be honest, I never came here thinking, no, I want to be an American citizen. I want to stay here. No, 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 no. I thought I came to learn so I could, what I learned, I'd take it back home to help improve Nigeria. But I ended up staying here and help, you know, becoming an American citizen. So importantly, you can't be a criminal. Don't get involved in crime. Don't because those things affect your immigration process. So there's certain things. If you have if you've been a convicted felon and you lied about it and then you ended up becoming a citizen and then somebody outs you. So if you're a citizen, they can't revoke your citizenship, right? That's the law, unless you got it illegally. You committed fraud, you used fraud, you lied to them to obtain it. Then there's a process of taking you to court. The government has a burden of proving that you obtained that citizenship through fraud. You lied, you misrepresented yourself. For instance, if you were a Nazi and killed like a bunch of 50 Jewish people, and then you came and you lied and said you were a priest, and then you went and became a citizen, and then somebody comes and says, no, 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 this guy was a Nazi and he tortured people, that Joe Smith is not his real name. His real name is Joseph Mengele, blah, blah, blah. There was actually a real person like that who had been a Nazi, escaped and became a priest, became an American citizen. And somebody saw him in church, that, wow, so one of his victims saw him in church in America. It's a true story. I like watching Forensics Files. It's true. It really happened in America. And the FBI the Department of Justice, Immigration, they now have to start investigating. They went through a long process and they got his fingerprinting and with his fingerprints and his previous fingerprints back home when he was a Nazi, where he came from. And they found that he was under a false identity. He changed his identity and became cleaned up and became a priest. And he lied about his background. And so, he willingly revoked his citizenship. So the thing is, once you've become a citizen, so just to make sure people are not abused, because your citizenship becomes your right, your property, you're still, in the process of revocation, stripping you of your citizenship, right, you also have to revoke it, right? You have to revoke it yourself. They want to make sure that they're not doing something that's a civil rights constitutional violation or human rights violation. So this guy willingly, he revoked it, and then he emigrated to another nation, to Spain. So if you used a false identity, those are the people that the government is revoking their citizenship, right? Those are the people the government has a right to revisit and see, and they have to prove that no, this person lied, right, in their process, and they're not who they said they are, right? They were actually a convicted felon, but they lied to us that they were not a convicted felon, and somehow we didn't catch it. But now we have evidence this person was a convicted felon, and so that's whose citizenship they can revoke. But that person has to also revoke it, right? They have to revoke it themselves as well. Otherwise, you just be locked up in the harshest prison for a long time until you get tired. So those are the people whose citizenship that they can revoke, because they weren't supposed to get in the first place. In any event, I'm just going to stop this here. I hope this was helpful. My name is Oloroti Miosha, and I will keep you posted. Thank you.